Africa is said to be the birthplace of humanity, and knowing its history is essential for understanding the global society that has grown around it. It has a rich and complex history, but there is widespread ignorance of this heritage. Many Africans are not conversant with events that shaped the continent's history, from the early men and women who left their footsteps in volcanic ash to the liberation of Nelson Mandela, and lots of wars, conquests, civilizations and revolutions in between.
Well, this is the African Ancestral Wall located at New Ningo in the Greater Accra region. The about 400 feet long wall contains portraits of various ancestors who really helped shape the history of the world.
Mr. Jerry Johnson from California, USA, is the founder of the African Ancestral Wall, located at New Ningo in the Greater Accra region. The location is very calming with the Atlantic Ocean yonder. A teacher and cultural entrepreneur, Mr. Johnson says there must be a reawakening of the African Renaissance in the youth. This realized dream started as a desire to teach the local youngsters within the Pram Ningo catchment area African history some 15 years ago. Mr. Johnson explained that the lack of logistics hindered his efforts, so he decided to put the portraits up on the wall so that students and visitors will come on field trips free of charge.
Since I had the space here, I decided to put up a wall with different ancestral characters on them, black ancestors from around the diaspora since the beginning of our species, actually, and bring the children here on excursion. And so this has worked out better because when the children come, they see these large portraits of Africans in history. It has some impact on them, and it's also gives me a chance to go more in depth, and also it lets me get more interaction with them than really. Sometimes we're in the schools, as you know, sometimes can be noisy and distractions, and so this way I get their attention.
While walking the team through the altogether serene and informative grounds, Mr. Johnson said it is imperative to start with the youth because there is a lot of bad socialization going on among the African youth living in Ghana and abroad. To him, it is easier to implant the African Renaissance in the minds of Africans in their youthful age. The objective is to create the Africans we need to solve the problems that we have, he said.
If you only go to school and see what the Europeans and this one and the Asians, all of these people have done, the Greeks, the Romans, and on, as a student coming up, you begin to wonder if you've done anything. So you'll trust the capabilities of other people more than you trust your own capabilities because you've never been told that you've done anything. So once you start going through the wall here and you realize that the first medical doctor in history was an African in the Nile Valley, you start learning all of these kinds of things. And of course the parents of humanity come out of Africa and a whole lot more. We have such a variety of history. So what it does, it begins to build the confidence of the youngsters so they grow up with a can-do attitude as opposed to wondering if they can fit into someone else's world, wondering whether or not they're even capable of doing the things that they see other places in the world.
Touching on the themes chosen, Mr. Johnson said for each portrait there is a lesson or something the people stood for, even though some of them were not famous at all. This he wants the youth to imbibe in terms of the African history, ancestry, and the foundation of the African.
Marcus Garvey said, "Up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will." And I think the key word is will, which means what you will yourself to do. And there's no one else in the world who really, if you go back in history, has a brighter place in the sun than we do. We just don't know about it. So let's educate ourselves. Let's educate each other. Let's imbue that confidence in our talented children. And the world is for us.
Several artists used their skills to paint an outside gallery for students, visitors, and locals alike. The portraits are of heroes and go from 200,000 years ago, from Eve to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, from Kintakitaya to Nagbewa, from Thomas Sankara to Mariam Makiba, and from Steve Biko to Shaka Zulu. The project, which started as word of mouth among the people in the community, is now something of an attraction, and people come from different countries across the world to know more about the African history. Mr. Jerry Johnson said, "It is time for Africans to build something powerful in the world."